Hello and welcome, I'm Kier Scrivener, and I've not filmed in a little bit, but I'm back for the Women's Prize. I love following this prize, I love reading books. It is a few days after the Longlist has been announced, but I have only had one spoiler. I think I saw Good Girl on it, and I have been kind of out of the loop of booktube for the last few months. It's been a busy season in my life and I haven't been able to keep up. So a lot of these books are going to be brand new and I'm excited to react and then also have immediate access to other people's reactions. If you follow this prize, if you read about it, I would love to hear your thoughts and feelings. And I've been following this now for 3 years and I just adore being able to follow it. I have done many reviews and reactions and thoughts about previous prizes, so I will leave those linked below for your enjoyment. And I'm so excited for this Women's Prize season. Here we go, baby.
Women's Prize for Fiction, Longlist.
Okay, guys. I should have got Bailey's.
Good Girl.
Oh, first one. Great.
Faber. This is a highly emotive, psychedelic read with writing that is poetic and incredibly moving. Set in Berlin's artistic underground, it follows Nilla, a young woman born to Afghan parents as she comes to terms with her identity.
Dream Count, Chimamanda.
Okay, that first one sounds incredible. Definitely up my alley. I have only read her nonfiction, so I'm interested in reading Dream Count as well.
This book explores fragile female friendships and deals with race, with class, with motherhood, with the absence of motherhood. It's completely vivid and real, fantastic dialogue, and stories that will stay with you long after you finish reading.
The Ministry of Time, Kalyan Bradley.
I'm surprised that this book is eligible. I thought this book came out a long time ago, but it's funny how a year can feel like such a long time.
Sci-fi, it's romance, a spy thriller, fantasy and historical fiction about a civil servant who falls in love with a man from 1847.
Wow.
This book was addictive, propulsive and a total joy to read. Somewhere Else, Jenny Deiches. This was a beautiful book about a young child who escapes Poland and is adopted by a Scottish couple. It's an epic generational story about womanhood and living in a country even though you feel home is somewhere else. Amma, Saray de Silva. I didn't want this book to end. It's a multi-generational story about a Sri Lankan woman, her daughter and her granddaughter, and spans decades and countries from Sri Lanka to New Zealand. It shows how societal judgments on women have changed over time, and there are so many powerful scenes in it that have stayed with me long after I finished the book.
Cricket Seeds, Karen Jennings. This book is set in Cape Town. It's a sort of mystery book, but also about alcoholism. It made my skin crawl in the best possible way.
All Fours, Miranda July.
I'm so judgmental about George Saunders. If you've encountered the conversations around the best 100 books of the 21st century and all of those things or heard my thoughts, I just have a little bit of a judgmental thought on him. So like All Fours does not sound like a cover or a title that I would really love. Like it's kind of that wildness, bestiality that I would probably not go into in reading. And then I see George Saunders and I know that they're supposed to. So often author blurbs are supposed to like encounter us and encourage us to read the books, and so often they're like, no, Ashley, if it's like that, I'm good. That sounded very judgmental, but it's true.
The Persians, Sanam Maluji.
Look at that cover.
This book is full of larger-than-life characters and rich in Iranian history and glamour. It's funny, gutsy, confident writing with shifting voices and different modes.
You know what I like more than anything? Shifting voices. Oh, the cover, the plot, the shifting voices, I am sold.
Storytelling.
Nesting, Machine O'Donnell. This book is written about...
That's such an evocative title with the little girl and the mother, I think, in the corner. Like, wow, that's very evocative. It's like, it's not a cover I generally love, but like that image and it being sad. Oh, there's another little girl too. Interesting. We have to have the Irish book too.
It's about domestic violence. Really strong narrative voice with lots of sympathy and empathy, and yet
my heart just like actually hurts when you say nesting and then you say domestic violence, and like I already have a picture evoked there. And sometimes like I think that can be hard because I have images of what the book should look like and it's not that way. I think that happened last year with the Wren. I like heard about it and I had such an evocative picture of what I imagined that the book would deal with, and it was very, very different, and I think that affected the way that I judged that book.
The Dream Hotel, Layla Lalami. It's a book that explores the consequences of a society that becomes hyper-reliant on algorithms, and the world created by Layla seems scarily within reach. I'd not stop thinking about it.
A Little Trickery, Rosanna Pike. It is about the one.
I like the various women in this circle all fading and being half in. I really like that.
Who is a heroine of epic proportions. It's just wonderful, charming, brilliant.
Tell me the plot.
It's almost Chaucerian.
The Safekeep.
Oh.
Yale van der Voden.
I was like, wasn't this on last year's? But no, it was on last year's Booker, which we almost always have crossover. I was not in the vibe for predictions and stuff like that, but I would have been more involved if I had have known this and this would have been eligible, because I know that this got shortlisted and was very well reviewed.
The writing is next level.
I don't think I'm going to read The Safekeep, but I did read an essay by this author about Anne Frank and about her experience with Anne Frank and like how people thought she looked like that. And then it was like such an interesting essay. And I'm not that interested in the book itself, but it was interesting when you read a piece of writing by an author and then you have an encounter with that author, even though you haven't read one of their books. I find that very interesting. So that Anne Frank essay is very, very good.
The artist, Lucy Steeds.
I'm such a predictable person. Say the artist and then have this and have half hidden with like a paintbrush and I'm like all in. I'm such a predictable, like, artistic, feminist. It's very funny to me.
Set during the First World War in Provence. It's about
First World War. I love First World War stuff every time. Like, everyone loves Second World War, and I'm like, give me the First World War. I love it so much. And I think it's such underrepresented, and I love the way that it crashes the modern and old history back together. Like, my favorite image of World War I is that they rode in on cavalry and got shot by machine guns. And then you have like even just like the beginning of it and like the Edwardian period, and then you end with the flappers. Like, it's so interesting for so many areas. So I find that part of history such interesting. So this might be a book I need to pick up. I'm just hoping that these books are available in Canada because often they are not.
a journalist who goes to interview a reclusive and eminent artist. The writing is so beautiful, the descriptions of the art is immersive, you can smell the paint, feel the fabrics and see the light in the studio.
Birding Rose Ruane. So this book really...
So we have a nesting and a birding. I'm sure that joke has been made already. Such an interesting cover. It almost feels like anti-utopian suburban in the 1980s, or 50s, I mean. And maybe that's a weird description and probably has nothing to do with what it actually is. But I just think the style reminds me kind of like the 50s, maybe older, but then the ice cream, so it's like suburbia and like the beginning of like fast food stuff and diners. I'm really into this book cover so much. Also, like, even this. It reminds me of like the collage art that Sarah, your screen does.
But also coming of age in the 90s.
I was close.
And the noughties. I highlighted the whole thing on my Kindle.
Fundamentally, Saber Eunice. It's a complex story about the bureaucracy of the UN. It opened up for me a world I'd never ever thought about. It's irreverent, it's funny, it's clever, and it's really enjoyable.
It really reminds me of We Meant Well, which I read for the Giller Prize 2 years ago, and it was such an interesting book about nonprofits and going to different places, and I don't know if it's at all similar in plot, but that book is such an interesting book to look at the like different global organizations, how they mean to bring hope and goodness, and sometimes they bring harm instead. So it's such an interesting book, and I wonder if it would be a book that would be in parallel to this book.
Tell Me Everything, Elizabeth Strout.
I think this is the 6th book in this series. I think I read the first 4. I read O. William, so that's that 3 or 4. And then there's Lucy by the Sea that I never read. And then I think that this is the book after it. And I did enjoy that series. I had such an interesting thought process when I read through it. I feel like I like her writing and the way that she tells writing, but I also don't love some of the descriptions or how she speaks about people. Like, I find it a little more othering or just in a vibe that I don't like. Maybe in the way that it reminds me of women of her age, which, you know, is the era of my mother and grandmother, and just like how some of that stuff, just the way that they talk, rubs me the wrong way. I don't know, it's such an interesting thing. But I have meant to kind of get caught up in the series, so it would be a good time to do that. So this is our book collection, and what are the books that I'm most excited for? I think The Artist, The Persians, Fundamentally, and Amma. I'm very excited to read more about them and to hear people talk about them, and I'm sure that last year, the books that I thought I would hate are the books that I ended up loving, and some of the books that I thought I would love are the books that I ended up hating. Women Prize season is always such an interesting time of discovery and conversation, and I don't think I'm going to try to read the entire Longlist this year. I'm having a little bit of a slower year in reading, but I'm very excited to see what is available, what interests me, and do some more research. So please talk to me in the comments. Tell me about your own experience. If you have reviewed these books or have reactions to them, I would love to know that so I could check out your videos. And I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.